Hi, this is John Carpenter, and you're listening to the iWalter Show.
Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Look, up in the sky, it's a bird brain, it's a plane, it's iWalter. Yes, it's iWalter, strange visitor from another planet who came to Earth with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men. iWalter, who can change the course of mighty rivers, bend ears with his annoying voice, and who disguised as Walter Interranti, mild-mannered janitor for a great metropolitan newspaper, fights a never-ending battle for truth, nonsense, and the American way. And now, another exciting episode in the adventures of iWalter.
Okay, yeah, it is me. It is iWalter. Yeah, I apologize. I haven't done a show in a couple days, and really I just don't have much to talk about, I guess. I don't know. We had what's called a shutdown. I think we have one next week, too, so that keeps me a little bit more quiet, I guess, so to speak, which, hey, most people don't care. There's not many people listen to me anyway. It's going on 9 o'clock. It's actually Saturday, July 16th. You know, once again, it's 9 o'clock at night almost. It's going on 9 at least. It's getting late. Yeah, it was funny. Actually, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to talk about. I never am. And then I say, I'm not going to do a show that's that long, I promise you. And they end up being, like, pretty long anyway. So it's hard to say. This one actually may be a little long. I got to adjust my mic levels. I think I have a little bit too... it's going into... the red, so that's not always good. Anyway, I'm using my regular conventional laptop right now. I actually put some updates. I actually bought a $350 extended warranty on my new Mac backup laptop. It is actually nice. It's easier actually for me to carry the work too. That's the one thing I really like about it. But once again, it costs $350. Even though it's so steep, for an Apple product, it's actually probably not a bad idea because you do all your work at Micro Center. If I have a problem like a hard drive, because I like the old conventional hard drives, I'm not quite sold on getting those new ones, which I'm not willing to plunk out the money for one of those solid state drives yet. So until they go down even further in price, they've dropped tremendously. When you can get a terabyte for a laptop, that's all I use anyway. When I can get a terabyte for like under a couple $100, then I'll buy one. But right now, not even worth the cash, so I'm not going to do it. But I went over there, and it was like, okay, yeah, hey, I got this hard drive. I can put it in myself, but then that'll void the warranty that I just bought. So it costs like $60, but if they put it in and it gets screwed up after they put it in with that extended warranty combined, they're going to replace it at their cost. So hey, and that could happen. Now there's the guy at the Micro Center. That's where I went. If I haven't mentioned it, he kind of convinced me. He says, "Well, you should buy just convert your system." Where you have all solid state in there. You could even take out the DVD-ROM drive. It's like, well, you know what? I didn't tell him this. I hate to tell you, but I do use my DVD-ROM drive. I'll pop in a movie once in a while. You can still get digital download movies or movies that come with the DVD as well as the Blu-ray. They do that combo pack. 'Cause a lot of people still use DVDs, conventional DVDs. It hasn't completely died out yet. So I still have a use for that. It was very nice of him to tell me. It's like what I paid for this system used, it's not even worth it. I would have bought a completely solid state off the bat, but I did not. Anyway, it was funny when I was in there. I finally picked these up, and it actually is a decent idea, but I'm going to ask for some more money off. They had this thing. You put on your keys and other trinket devices. It's these little tags. They're called Tile. The company's called Tile. And you basically hook it up through your phone. Now, you can use this product without one of those tiles to actually track down your cell phone in case you misplace it. But you know what? I already have that option because I have an Apple phone where I could find my phone if I lose it through my laptop and computer because it's all interlinked. All Apple products are interlinked. So it's kind of stupid to have that part. But this tile thing, let's see if it has it on the back, which you could probably use it on. No, it doesn't. It's very nice. It basically has a built-in tracking device, but it's got a battery. I thought it would work off a battery. The battery only lasts, it's warranted for 1 year, so once the battery dies, you're kind of screwed. And these things aren't cheap. They're about $25. A 4-pack was like $70. I had an open box one, though, that was marked down to $38.96 because there was 3 in the box. I was like, well, that's a great deal. Well, here, and individually, they're $25 a tag. So they are pretty pricey. They are guaranteed for a year. But here's the catch, though, folks. One of the tags was not only missing, there was one tag that was missing, and there was another one that was actually already activated. So that was a 30-day return policy, but it was like, well, actually, even at 2 for $40 is pretty good because 2 individually would be about $50 if you buy them individually. So I'm saving about $10 on the 2 that work. So I'm going to actually have to stop by because my hard drive was graded to a 1 terabyte with 128 megs of cache on from Microsoft. I let them do it on this Apple laptop I have. I'm going to go back and say, listen, hey, after I'm done picking up my laptop, just to let you know, I don't want to return this, but hey, can you give me more money off? Because one of the devices in the box, I even have a receipt to show it. I wrote the company that says, hey, this has been activated by so-and-so, which they go by your email address. Well, my email address is not either one of these 2. So one of the devices was activated out of the box. Now, the thing about this is these tags that once you're activated, it's for security reasons. You can't deactivate it. Once it's activated, it's garbage. So I'm going to let them know that. It's like, well, I activated 2 of them. I didn't know the third one was already activated until I wrote the company. What can you do for me? Can you take like an extra $10 or $20 off? I'll be happy. I'll keep my mouth shut if you do that. But the nice thing is, which I didn't realize you could do this, but obviously you can put it on your keychain. You can actually slip one in your wallet, which is a good idea. How many times have you lost your wallet? Women, a woman can put it in her purse, this tag, and it will actually make a sound, or it has a GPS homing device in the tag. That's what makes it kind of nice. It says you can put one in your duffel bag, your car, which is actually good because it gives you a GPS map. It will ping itself, but for your car, it's perfect because what if you park in a parking lot? How many times did it happen? You can't find your car. You can actually ping it and look on the map, and it will send you in the right direction of the location of your car. Then, so you actually put one on your camera. Cameras are always a big deal, I guess. Luggage, and it shows bikes, bicycles, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're a kid on campus, that would be a good idea. Either way, it's pretty interesting. I will take these tags and bring them back and say, listen, they're no good. 2 of them have been activated by me. 1 was missing, and the 3rd or 4th one was actually activated by somebody else. So, again, I hope they gave me some money off. I'm actually almost thinking, hey, if they knock it down an extra $10, that's $30 for 2 that do work. It's still a good deal for me. I wouldn't mind buying a couple more, like these tags, and sharing with my parents because they have a tendency to lose things too. So I do. Like I put one on my work badge, so that's great. You can now, if you do want to give them to somebody else, you can put their name on file, but you can only do that. But these people who purchased these and then decided they didn't want them, that's a different story because now once it was activated, there's no way unless they couldn't even they really couldn't even just give it to they have to give their email address to I don't know, they'd have to forward it to me, like the device. It would be under my email account, but I don't know who this person is, so it's not going to work. Anyway, yeah, it's kind of interesting. Again, those are neat. But why I kind of wanted to do, because I have a couple things. By the way, for those who are interested, I kind of was not at first interested, but I am now, is that Ghostbusters movie just started. last night. Now, a friend of mine said, hey, the reviews are really bad. I was like, I looked at them. It's like, they're actually not that bad at all. They were above lukewarm, I'll tell you that much. They were actually closer to being almost really good for that type of film. So, yeah, that being said, it was like, well, actually, it's not getting that bad of reviews. Well, actually, let me check right now since I'm saying it. Because it just came out. And if I could spell. And I'm being silent, I know. I'm trying to put in Rotten Tomatoes and try to at the same time spell Ghostbusters. It got at 73%, which is not bad, seriously, and it got a 52% people liked it. Now, actually, I was tempted to, because they also put on the pre-order for Suicide Squad, which will be out in the next couple weeks. It's hard to believe. I mean, I've heard about this movie. They released every possible picture on Suicide Squad, and now it's finally like coming to light in the next... Somebody's trying to call me. An 800 number, which I can't pick up the phone, so... Actually, my phone wasn't ringing, though. I just want to look at Fandango real quick, too, because Fandango will give me a clearer picture on what they thought. I think, personally, Ghostbusters might come in, like, maybe even number one, is my educated guess. I mean, it's a whole different thing. It's all women this time, but they're actually pretty good comedians. I like them. So, I honestly don't see a problem with it. Trying to look on Fandango. Movie listens, and then I'll look for Ghostbusters. Yeah, I mean, originally the reviews from people weren't that, like, lukewarm. Literally were lukewarm. But I think overall, I think it's probably going to do pretty well. I mean, you got a lot more CG than you did in the past. I mean, I really... Yeah, 74% fresh on tomato meter, and I think that's actually pretty damn good. Considering what kind of, it's a remake and they try to make it almost, it seemed to me like it felt like they were trying to make it politically correct. But, I'm looking at, like, in the 3D version, which would probably be better for that movie, or even the standard version, it's actually got 4 out of 5 stars. I mean, to me, I think that's pretty damn good. 4 out of 5 stars for a movie that's a sequel, but also taking it into a different direction. That's not bad at all. So, again, at first I wasn't like I was going to boycott that movie, and then I looked at it. I was like, well, hey, if it's getting that kind of reviews, I may actually reconsider and going to see it. I was going to see it this weekend, but I'm not even quite sure because I'll have other things going on this weekend as well. Apologize about the background because I can hear it. I'm not sure until I'm done actually the show. If it's going to pick up is my fan running in the background. It actually keeps everything running a little bit more cool as far as my electronic stuff. That's why I do that now. Yeah, so there was one thing a friend had. A friend sent in a private message in a group, private group. And, it kind of like, okay, I got to do a story on this. I mean, I can just tease people with what it was about. And by the way, I'm putting as my cover page there was like 4 different sources. They all pretty much covered the same way about this company, Merck, Sharp and Dome, downsizing, moving things west and overseas from its location in Lansdale. Now, this company actually, believe it or not, was basically pretty much, it was a part of Lansdale. It's called West Point. And West Point actually, believe it or not, is pretty much this company called Merck. So from them tremendously downsizing, this is going to be definitely a big effect on that economy around that part of Lansdale, because it's basically Lansdale it's like pretty much the city is ran around this, the homes, everything around there is ran from this company Merck. So for them basically now downsizing a particular site. Now, they didn't say anything about it being on this West Point site, but it's going to be at a location in Lansdale because they actually have other, I believe, offices or research center down the road from this main location. I could be wrong about that, but it's something on that line. So either way, it's going to affect Lansdale. So it's definitely gonna hit people in some sense of the word that they're not seeing yet. So I looked at these different articles. One thing that was actually interesting. The last article was written was how this company Merck actually won a $2 billion lawsuit. Well, what's so special about that? Well, the interesting part was, I'm going to paraphrase, which means it could change the context. Maybe not that much, maybe it will a bit, but hey, it's the truth either way, where they won. I'm trying to look without paraphrasing it, but even reading one small segment will make it sound a bit different, but there's more to it than, it is the truth. Let me see if I can find it. A friend actually originally sent it to me, so I'm going to see, or I sent it to them. But anyway, it was by a web link called biospace.com. And it was like the third or fourth link I found about this company and how, they're going to downsize from approximately what's left on the East Coast about after severely downsizing over the past couple years. This company is actually left with 3,600 workers, and they say about 10% of that, probably most likely more, is going to be chopped. I believe probably if a company keeps on downsizing, you read about it every once in a while, and they say approximately 10%, they mean more than that. So the part that, I read this article, again, you can find it on jobs.com. Now, I'm a shareholder. I own some shares in this company, but I also own in other companies, which I don't care because as being a shareholder, I wouldn't care. But for these people that work there, yeah, that could mean a little bit of a different. I feel bad for people that could be out of a job. So cutting down this one part that just really stuck out in this article. It said on June 10th, Merck announced it was acquiring San Matino or something, California-based affiliate, Afferent Pharmaceuticals, for an upfront payout of $500 million in stocks, in addition to $750 million based on clinical and commercial milestones. So now this company Merck they're not making anything themselves. They're just basically buying other companies. So I guess the thing is, now that they're buying other companies and buying their research, they will downsize who they have working for them now. They will become part of this company, Merck's umbrella, but they won't. Well, when you have somebody coming in from that's making money for this company, they will no longer need the overhead or the amount of people they have working for them now, because the product's going to be completely different. So they won't need their old or their existing employees. They're going to be downsized every time they buy out another company, as I assume. But again, there's one part that this article, I would say read it yourself. It was on the 13th, which was Thursday of this month. And it just basically was titled Merck & Company, with the abbreviation for the stock symbol of theirs, which is MRK, all caps, to cut or shift 360 East Coast jobs, add 100 to in the Bay Area. So they're going to cut back in one area, they're going to actually increase in other areas. But probably from these other companies that they buy out is where they're going to increase their head count. So I'm trying to look real quick. Okay, it's not going to make sense to most of you folks, but I'm just going to read this one section because it really kind of makes me question this whole company now. It says, it's the second to the last paragraph. Actually, it's the last paragraph because there's only a sentence after that. So it's it's the second to the last paragraph. I apologize. And what this says, the deal was announced only a few days after a federal judge threw out the patent infringement finding Merck had won. So they won this patent infringement, Merck did, and overturned a $200 million jury award. The judge noted that Merck had lied. Now, here's the word lied. You know, basically they were caught being, what would that be? That's not considered slander, but it is a lie of some sort. So I don't know if it would be considered liable or slander, but it just says that Merck had lied to one of its business partners and to the court, saying the company's activities were systematic and outrageous deceptions in conjunction with unethical business practices and litigation misconduct. Now, I probably didn't do a very good job of trying to explain that or even read it correctly. That's why I'd say read it yourself and read it in its entirety, that whole article. But it basically, the bottom line is Merck got caught lying in the courts. It's the judge realized after he had awarded them $200 million. So if this company lies about stuff, what makes you think they're going to stop with just lying in the courts? They could be lying probably to their own employees is what my guess would be. And this is happening everywhere, I think, with other companies. I'm just pointing this out because it was, been on the news quite a bit lately around here. But it starts out by just saying Merck and Company announced they are cutting research and development jobs at 3 locations on the East Coast, in Kenilworth and Rahway, New Jersey, and North Wales, Pennsylvania, which North Wales is pretty much, I would say it's in the same vicinity as Lansdale, or at least not that far. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out because I'm going to make that, or have made that my cover for my thing tonight. So, yeah, so that's pretty cool. I'm actually looking now. It's pretty funny. This one, I like when people do that. She's a really attractive woman named Carla Helens. She actually is live at a concert, I guess, right now. And she posted. She did some live feed. Looks like Get the Lead Out. Is it a cover band for Led Zeppelin or something? But she's doing something at a Led Zeppelin thing, so or a cover band, I don't know. So it's pretty cool. She's actually a very, very attractive lady too. So I'm just letting you know. So, and I am bleeding through some stuff right now as I'm speaking because there's always other stuff. Now I've actually diverted from what I really wanted to talk about, but I really, honestly, bringing it up is one thing. Reading this stuff is going to be completely different because the bottom line, I can't read it at all. That's the problem. And if I even I'm sorry, somebody actually put up a very funny picture. I normally don't like political ones, but this one's just too freaking funny. Justin Motes put up a picture, political one, but it's too good to be true. It says, warning, Sarah Palin alert, a dumb Brock is about to speak again. And it's some chick that's basically squirting water out of her ass. I mean, I'm going to take that down, but I think it's funny. I'm actually going to send this to a friend right now. The stories I'm going to read, I'm just going to let you know. Once again, they're just, what do you call it? They're or stories. This it's a web link. Let me just type something in real quick, folks. You're gonna hear a silence for a couple minutes. I was gonna take a couple seconds, but you know me, I type so awfully. I want to take it down before somebody comments, because I actually like Sarah Palin, so don't get me wrong. It's just the picture is just too freaking funny. So, it's like literally the girl. Well, it's actually a fabricated picture. So, if it was just the picture alone, I would not have a problem with it. But it's just the fact they had to put Sarah Palin's name in there. Anything to mock the poor woman is not cool. Somebody put up a really cool picture of some Jaws too. I like that one. One of those. What do you call those? Those things that keep on gifts or something, I think they're called. So it's really cool. Let me just give you a little teaser on that one, because I got some other news, a little lighthearted. I mean, the news lately has been, everything is about what happened the last couple days, which is very serious. Don't get me wrong. It's very, very serious. Anyway, the link I'll probably wait to get into a discussion, because I really can't say much about it, was racelies.com. I don't know how this friend found it, but it is very, well, I don't know if I'll dig into it now. It's very derogatory. Is that the word? It's very racist. I'll let you know right now. It can be quite offensive, but it actually rose some interesting points, though. So, I already started, though, and I would rather not go in this. It's called Race Lies TV, but it's .com, anti-racist, counter-racist, and racist. So this thing is completely a racist link, and I'm actually afraid to even post it. So normally some stuff that is just politically incorrect, I will place it up and enjoy it. But this is like borderline will get me in major trouble, like a lot of trouble. So, but it did make me think about things, because there's that, like, when you break down statistics on what's considered Caucasian, which I don't even know what that number is right now, and what is considered Asian and other things, they don't really go into too much detail. All you ever hear about is quote-unquote African Americans, and they say African Americans make up only 13% of the U.S. Population. It was like, I find that really hard to believe, because I know a lot of urban areas that its majority is African American, a large majority. It's very seldom that there's Caucasian, Asians, Hispanic, which the Hispanic population has, Latino has increased in the U.S. over the past years due to the immigration explosion that's happened illegally. But I find it really hard to believe when I say only African Americans only make up 13% of the nation. If that was a possibility, it'd be like looking for a needle in a haystack for somebody who is technically African American, which is not the issue. And most people, that's why they're called urban areas, live in urban areas. But what do they consist of? Generally, majority of the population of urban areas where most people live are African American. So how can they only make up 13% of the nation? I think part of that is just a crock of shit, and I think that because it's just a way of just making them seem as though they are even more victimized. Like, hey, there are a small group of people that are unequally treated, and it's like, I'm not denying the fact that African Americans are being mistreated, but they are not the only ones. You kind of dismiss all the other nationalities and just focus on one group of people. So that part does bother me. Don't get me wrong. So I'm just going to try to give you an example, and I'm going to be very careful reading this. Trust me, because these are very offensive. This whole page is very offensive. It says, race war in America. Ohio inner city school teacher says, uses in parentheses the N-word, stay out of his white suburban township in a racist tweet. So these are articles. It's basically, yes, it states the N-word, stay out stay the fuck out of our white township. So these are, I don't know who put up this page. It still exists. It hasn't been pulled down, and there's articles on these. These were articles. So government jobs, it says if you don't live in a community, you work in it, then most likely you won't respect those in that community. So that wasn't too bad. I'm being very, very careful. And, there's pictures in here that are just as equally as offensive and racist as well. I'm trying to look at some other stuff. Back in Camden, in New Jersey, the cops, teachers, pretty much all government workers had to live in a city, in the city limits, even the whites, cops, teachers, etc. This is what's written. I grew up 3 doors down from a cop who always looked out for the people in the neighborhood. The cops in the neighborhood, except for a few rogues, had to treat the people nice because after that shift was over, the people were their neighbors. So nothing offensive there, I would think. But there's a lot on this page, trust me, and there's actually people responding back who are have these same beliefs. And there's the excerpt of teacher tweet, take your N-word ass back where it came from. So again, the page can be very offensive. So why am I reading this in? Well, the point is, it kind of made me think about something. Yeah, there's other stuff about us. Race war in America, hoodies versus cowboys. Police play knockout game. Racial fight club. Get the hate out. Right now, it didn't dawn on me until I saw this page, and there's much, much more on this page. I don't know where he found it, but it's pretty interesting. They actually have statistics. Race war, police versus minorities. Minorities 16 or 30%. Police 69%. Race wars, police versus minorities. I've heard that the African Americans are ones who are more prone to attack police more than the police are, with violence, gun violence. It's speculated that it's the police shooting all these African Americans. It's actually the other way around, and other African Americans, just to clarify that. Race war, white racist versus minorities. White races only, it says 70%, minorities 29%. Race war, white races versus minorities. So it's saying white races makes up 70% and minorities make up 29%. I don't know. You can see all this stuff, but again, why I want to go back to this, I didn't think I was going to start talking about this now, was it did bring up to I try to explain to a friend. Now, this one friend I try to explain this to, he never answers back. He never answers most of what I say. And the funny thing is, her bitch and complain if somebody doesn't respond back to him or doesn't text him back. He actually blows up about it. But he's very hypocritical because her do the same thing to me constantly. And I'm supposed to just take it with a grain of salt. But it's like, dude, you're being a hypocrite. You're telling me how you get pissed off if your supervisor doesn't respond to your text, how you could see that he hasn't responded back, or that he just ignores you, who just pretends you didn't say anything, but you do the exact same thing. So that is the pot calling the kettle black. I mean, hate to tell him this if he listens in. It's not to be offensive, it's just being truthful. So anyway, the one thing I'm glad this was posted in some ways, obviously in a private sector, a private message, not open for other people to see, and I'm going to keep it that way. It's up to you if you want to find this link. Again, it's called Race Rally. What is it called? Race Rallies? RaceLies.com. So it's RaceLies.com. No spaces or anything like that. But I thought about it. It's like, I think our country, the biggest worry, I've been concerned about this for a long time. Quite honestly, I am very less concerned. I'm not concerned at all about, I mean, it's in the back of my mind, but it's way back there, about actually having a terrorist attack hitting my hometown. What worries me is this whole thing that's just got this whole propaganda thing. You know, I'd have to thank our president, our government, like not only just President Obama, but also Hillary Clinton, who has now just completely convinced African Americans how wrongfully they are being treated. And this just changes their outlook so much. Like now African Americans feel like that they're constantly, what do you call it? They're constantly being mistreated, and by the white person that it's now, I've heard it's gotten so out of hand. I got to type something in. Sorry about that. It's gotten so out of hand that they are actually like convinced, like especially the Black Panthers, they're convinced now that they need to kill as many white people as possible, which means white males. I'm sorry for the pause again, but you know, and that honestly that just scares me because there's another reason too. Man charged with taking upskirt pictures at Kmart in South Whitehall, which is in Pennsylvania. 35-year-old man allegedly took an upskirt picture of a Kmart employee in South Whitehall on Thursday. So this was in the morning call. Sorry about that. I just saw that and I just kind of caught my attention. But yeah, if you convince people that they're being, there's all this racism going on, you fully convince people this stuff. What eventually happens, people start to believe this stuff. They believe what they hear and what they're being told. So the problem with that is it's coming to a point now that I told this friend, he didn't respond back. He just ignored the whole thing. But it's going to happen, and then he's going to tell me, you know what, Walter? You really know what you're talking about. He did this the other day. It was something he ignored me about. And then he actually says, you know what, Walter, you hit it right on the head. You're like psychic. And it's like, yeah, I'm psychic because, and I only, I know I'm psychic. No, I'm just kidding. It's just amazing how, you know, he doesn't respond until what I say comes to light. And I think this is going to happen. This whole thing with the Pokemon is just driving me crazy, too. I mean, it really is. It's just out of hand. But, yeah, you keep on convincing people that there is this, you know, that there's something unethical going on in our country, that African Americans are being mistreated, that they are such a small group of people, and that the white male or the white population's holding these people back, and you keep on telling these people this over and over and over again. Not only are you convincing them of this fact, this nonsense, but you're actually separating people more and more and more into hate groups. You're like creating these hate groups, and you're fueling the fire for these people. So, yeah, and to me, it's actually kind of scary because I'm afraid now, like, somebody, just because I could be one of these random people for this knockout game that the people play. And that's generally, you hear this with the African Americans, or I might be their next victim. I don't even know. Or I might just get randomly shot and killed because they're going to think, well, hey, here's a white guy, and we're told by our government, by Barack Obama, that this guy is what's holding us back. It's him. Even though they don't know who I am or what the fuck I do besides some stupid podcast that nobody ever listens to. So, I mean, this is how scary it is. And it's even more scary, though, something else I wanted to read too. That it's happening on the opposite side. That it's, when you convince people, if you're an African American, that, hey, you should have everything given to you because, you've been wrongfully treated by the white male, and then you have people that are out of jobs, so they can't get jobs because, well, we have a quota we got to make, with different ethnic backgrounds, different sexes, male or female. We have to get females more jobs, and you're putting more people out of jobs because they don't fit the quota. What are you going to have? You're going to have people actually more and more just fighting against each other. And what I think, personally, what's going to happen is what I was trying to explain to a friend. I'm not doing a good job. I'm just kind of beating around the bush right now. Bottom line is I think it's going to turn into a second civil war. That's what I think is going to happen. This is what my thought process is. I'm thinking that, they can stir up the pot a little bit. People that believe and follow ISIS in this country who've, made it into this country, but they really can just sit back and relax. All they have to do, and you know what? There was a Twilight Zone was like that. I remember that now. There's this Twilight Zone where these aliens come down, and all they had to do is, just stir up very little, just to get a small town to turn against each other. And that's all ISIS has to do, or all the government has to do, which I'm kind of questioning, what do you call it? His beliefs is President Barack Obama's beliefs, even the Democrat side on their beliefs. But I remember, I don't know the name of the episode. I think it was it was a name of a street in this episode of I'm trying to think right now. This street in this one Twilight episode. I wonder if I could look it up and actually have some success. Was it like 21 Baker Street or something? I forget. Let me see if I can find it. I don't think I think that's what it was called. Oh, Monsters Do on Maple Street. Maybe that's the one. I'm not sure, but yeah, I can't remember 1950. But the whole premise was that, and I think this is all they would have to do. If you're an ISIS, part of ISIS, this is all they would have to do. But this one particular episode of the original Twilight Zone, these aliens come down, and all they did was they kind of flicked some lights, made some little things to make people jump in this small town, and it turned the whole town against each other. And everybody, every person turned against the other person because they thought that the other person was some type of alien. Well, the actual aliens were sitting back playing a little trickery with these people, and that's all it had taken to cause these people to turn against each other and literally tear each other apart. So that's all you have to do. I mean, you got a government that's doing this whole thing with this propaganda. And I can't go very deep into it right now because I was going to see if I can find it. I thought it was called Maple Street. I thought it was the name of a street, though. And I can't remember. It was one of the original episodes. And again, these two aliens, come down to Earth. They turn the whole entire town against each other. And by just flicking a couple lights and stuff. So maybe they redid that one. That's my guess. They probably redid that one. Because there's a newer, it says Twilight Zone, the monsters are on Maple Street. And it looks like the same premise. So maybe it was just a remake. They remade the original story. But the bottom line, it's not even that important. Honestly, folks, it's not that important. The whole premise was, I think that's all they would have to do, and that's where it's heading towards right now. where we, thanks to our government, and I think that's a big part of it, is our government is now turning people against each other. Like you're turning Caucasians against African Americans, Caucasians or African Americans against Latino population, blah, 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 and against their belief in religion and other things. And it's turning into people like cutting each other's throats. And in certain areas, it's worse than others, like especially the heavily urbanized areas. You're going to find more of this. So I looked at this webpage I had mentioned, and it's basically a racist webpage. And I'm thinking, well, this is going to be what's going to destroy this country. It's not going to be ISIS, but what's going to happen though is all they're going to have to do is step in later on and just finish up whatever debris, what's left from this debris. And that I actually do see happening. So that's where I stand, and why I wanted to kind of mention this article or this page, and this thing that was kind of brought to my attention. So there's certain things they say you never talk about, even at a dinner table, especially which is something in politics. Well, yeah, but that's people's focus right now is politics. And again, it's called racelies.com. And it's all racist comment stories and stuff. But, this was kind of awoken me to thinking, I'm going to shut this one down now, that, yeah, this is what's going to happen. We're going to be heading into another civil war. This is what our future is going to hold. It's not going to be that ISIS is going to come in and take over our country. It's going to be us destroying each other. Basically coming after each other for racial discrimination, inequality, sexism, and we're just going to destroy each other. And whatever is left on the debris, we're going to be so weakened by all this shenanigans that what we're going to be left with is pretty much is going to be a very sparse country of people. And we're not going to be able to defend ourselves. So, and I think it's almost actually probably maybe now that I think of it like World War II, where when Germany was in such ruins that they were looking for some type of savior, which basically ended up being Adolf Hitler came in to kind of save their economy and themselves, this Germany from themselves, try to rebuild a country that was basically, I don't want to say chaos, but it was definitely in a severe depression. So I think this is what direction, unfortunately, we are going. So, like it or not, this is what. Thank our government for that. So this is which direction we're going into. So, is it possible we're going to be leading ourselves into a civil war? Yeah, absolutely. And once that's done, then there's stuff that's come into play. Let me see if I can shut this down. It's coming to play right now. What you're hearing about, you don't hear the focus on what's being destructive in our country. That's kind of being just glossed over. But what you're hearing about, which was yesterday or the day before, I think it was, 2 days ago, breaking news about identity of, this is one article I'm reading, top right news, breaking news, identity of the man who murdered 80 people in France was just revealed. So you're hearing about the France thing. You're hearing very little also about, what was it called, a coup in Turkey. Like, Turkey got a military takeover now, and I've heard they had it in the past. Let me put in Turkey. I think it's COUP. Yeah, Turkish president wants U.S. to send rival cleric home. I was looking at one article. There's a ton of articles. That was some CNN, which I'm not a big fan of. But yeah, the Turkish government now got taken over by military task force. Yeah, it is COUP attempt, tragedy of Turkey's coup attempt. So they're a mess right now. All these countries are a mess, and there is that underlying thing that it's all over. Basically, is all over due to ISIS. But right now, I hate to say it, they're probably almost, in my opinion, the least thing I'm worried about. I'm more worried about not these Turkish people. I mean, or France. Yeah, it's serious stuff. Don't get me wrong. My worry is about how our country is just being completely taken apart. From the inside. It's going to be taken from the inside out, literally. And, you don't see that. That's a real shame because once, they successfully weaken our country so much, the government helping these different groups of people to have them believe that our country, it's because of Caucasians. They're destroying our country and stuff. That's... Once they're done doing that, there's going to be like nothing left, and then the worry is going to be even more so. You're going to have to worry more so about ISIS coming over because there's not going to be much left of us to defend our country. We're going to be too busy fighting amongst each other. So. There was something else on that line, folks, I did want to mention, and I lost my train of thought. And, didn't want to go too deep into this stuff, but I kind of did a little bit, I guess, more than I wanted to. Yeah, so that's where my concerns lie. That's, my concern lies within our own country, even in my own area, how it's just fallen apart. Yeah, I'm trying to think to see if I forgot anything. So, again, I don't know. I did have something else on this train of thought, and I'm sorry, I can't even remember anymore. But yeah, I mean this is a big deal to me, this whole thing, but. Unfortunately, it's not going to be taken. It's not going to be taken seriously. People are more worried about playing a game on their cell phone. This new Pokemon game that was, apt. They're more concerned about that, and more concerned about their boyfriends and their girlfriends, and about their social life. But when it comes to serious issues, they don't want to hear about it. So. Or how they're being victimized, how everybody's being victimized, and it's the white person's fault. That's all I ever hear about anymore. So it's just the whole thing is just disgusting. It really is. So I wanted to go in a different direction with some other stuff. I didn't want to go into large detail. Here's something actually a little lighter on the political stuff. This is not political, and I actually was considering contributing to this. It could be just a way of taking money out of your pocket, but I'm not like an animal activist type thing, but I saw this and it was really disturbing, so I'm going to mention it now. And it's called shark finning, and it says it's a brutal, inhumane practice when the fins are cut off of the sharks and the sharks are thrown back in the water where all their fins, literally all their fins, are cut off, so they can't fend for themselves. And a shark, if they can't swim, they will basically drown. They will drown because they need to constantly move to run water over their gills so they can breathe. So basically, they're going to drown. So they cut off some type of thing called shark finning. And it says, yeah, they can no longer swim. So I actually signed a petition. I'm not an animal activist thing, and most people are saying, well, these are sharks. Who gives a fuck? Well, you know what? There's certain things that, I can be a heartless fuck, but I saw that and was like, okay, there's certain things that I don't contribute, like cruelty to animals and stuff. I really, honestly don't do that all the time. I saw this one, and it's just like, I guess it's the whole fascination for me with sharks, and then seeing this, and it's like, okay, it's one thing that these are dangerous creatures. Well, most animal wildlife is dangerous. No matter how you look at it, it's dangerous. So I got an email back from this thing called Oceana, Protection for World's Oceans, and it says adopt a shark for like $50. You can give a donation. It's a one-time deal, and they give you a certificate, which is probably basically worth nothing. But you can give more, but and you can actually pick the animal that could be near extinction. You could actually donate to some other. If you like certain animals like lions, tigers, and bears, oh my, you could actually donate to one of them. So in some ways it was like, okay, I'm normally not a big fan of donating money, because money is sparse, even though I spend it like there's no tomorrow. And it was like, well, this I'd actually almost consider to do just for environmental reasons. I mean, I think it's just because of Peter Benchley's Jaws does, obviously made sharks so, so fascinating to everybody. And that part's cool, but, and I honestly, a lot of these cruelty to animals give money to third world nations. I kind of disregard it because, for one thing, a lot of stuff can be, I would think, personally, maybe it's just my way of thinking. It's not the way I was taught in school, though. Why don't they, instead of trying to deal with or have us deal with their problems, like, hey, now I know, I remember this from college, that they said, like, third world countries will have more children. There's a reason for that. Mainly it's because the reason they have more children because less of them will survive, and it's just a natural instinct. If you're like for humans at least using this terminology I'm going to use, the way you survive, like most animals in a natural habitat will survive. We're some form of an animal, even though we don't want to admit to it. Human beings are a form of animal life. Well, animals have different ways of surviving. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at something. I shouldn't do it right now. The way they survive, depending on where you are on the chain of the food chain. If you're on the lowest bottom, most likely, for at least other types of animals, if you're the lowest one on the food chain, the way you survive is you have lots of offspring. And the reason for that is because majority, like say you're, I'm just trying to think of something just to explain myself. Which this is not true, but say you're a cat, and the cat has a litter of kittens, when like 6 or so kittens. Well, if they were on the endangered species, the reason they have so many, and this is, I think, which would obviously apply for, because there is a higher population in third world countries, and the reason is because out of that offspring, with animals, normal animals, not humans, most of them get killed off by predators. For humans, most likely, out of like having a dozen children or half a dozen children in these third world countries, the survival rate is so low. It is so low that maybe out of just hypothetically 12 children, maybe 3 will survive. They'll make it to adulthood. So it's just it's an instinct. It's a natural instinct in animals, all types, including humans. That that if you're of a lower income, I would assume, or something, you're naturally it's just an instinct that kicks in that you want to survive. And the way you survive is by having more offspring because, unconsciously, you know that out of that large amount of offspring you have, maybe only a handful are going to make it to adulthood. And it's, it happens with animals, it happens with humans. But my thing is, knowing this is a problem and begging other countries for money, this is my problem, which kind of I already answered my own question, but I still have to ask this anyway. Why didn't you, instead of trying to feed all these hungry children, because I've heard this for the past 30 or 40 years, well, those children that you tell me are starving children in Ethiopia or these other countries, those children 30 years ago are now like 52 or 48. So they're grown adults if they made it that far. But then all you ever hear is about, these starving children in these other countries. Well, instead of teaching how to send over food, maybe you should teach them how to not procreate as much, I would think, on the other side of this coin, and maybe teach them how that if they don't have as many mouths to feed, they'll have more food for the ones that they are feeding. So I know I'm kind of contradicting what I just said, but that's the other part of the coin that I always question. On the other side, like I said, on the flip side of the coin, hey, even in the United States, you're here about there's these parts of these urbanized counties or whatever, where you have these single moms that have like 20 kids and they can't afford to feed all their mouths. Can you give us some money? It's like, well, there's a very simple solution to that. One, she shouldn't have procreated to the point that she has more kids than she can handle, more kids than 3 families can handle, 4 families can handle, and then you want a handout on top of that. So how is that my problem now when you're the one who created the problem? Because that's another thing I do have a serious issue with. How people always try to say, well, I have a wife and kids. I have, I'm a single mom and I got all these mouths to feed and stuff. And it's like, okay, whose fault is that? Or, hey, I just got a large mortgage out on their home and I can't afford it. I could use some help. Well, did I ask you to buy, spend over your means and get yourself into such financial debt that you can't get yourself out of? These are questions I always also ask. These are other examples, on the flip side, that I always question. And, like, people will complain how hard they have it. Oh, they can't make ends meet. Oh, I can't afford to pay my rent. Okay, so who asked you that, this time of your life you should move out and get yourself in a lot of financial debt? If you create problems for yourself and then you expect other people to bail you out, in actuality, whose fault is that? Is that my fault that I need to financially support you because you got yourself into major debt? Or is it your fault for putting yourself into that situation? Because in my eyes, I would have to say that it's your fault, this financial burden you have, or this problem with having too many kids that you can't afford to feed. On the other side of the fence, I'd have to actually say that's your fault. Because I've heard this even at my job. Oh, I got such this burden. I got all these bills to pay and all. It's like, okay, but did somebody ask you to get yourself in over your head on buying an extremely expensive home, have tons of children, and all this other stuff? Was this like my idea that I told you should do this? Because this is what our country needs out of you. No, actually, I didn't say anything. You were the one who, had taken upon yourself that, hey, I want all this stuff. Well, it's you. That's the thing. It's I. It's not me. It's I, meaning you, not me. So people don't realize that stuff. So on the other side of the fence, now I'm actually clarifying why I probably would give money now. I'm realizing why I would give money to a defenseless animal over top of a human being? Well, very simple. An animal can't, they can't help their situation, because most of the time the situations with certain animals is created by human beings anyhow. So that being said, they can't change their situation. We can, because we're the ones who created the situation for them. But a human being who complains about, hey, I can't handle all this financial burden, I can't handle all these children, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's something you created yourself. People that say, oh, I hear, like, probably women at work, oh, I got all these kids, I got all this financial burden, or guys, and it's like, well, okay, did somebody stick a gun to your head and ask you to get impregnated, or for you to get the woman pregnant, or did somebody tell you, you should buy this $500,000 home, and now that you bought it, somebody else should bail you out of your financial debt? No, in reality, you did all that stuff on your very own. Nobody else helped you do that. Just to give you a heads up. So, and even in other countries, that's why I'm a little leery about, like, when they say, hey, you should support so-and-so. To a point, it's like, well, you should take responsibility for yourself. So, that there's always that other side, though, that people wish not to see, I guess. I don't know. So, I just went off on another thing. I'm sorry. I'm trying to post something on my pages as I'm doing my podcast. It's going to make this a very boring show. But yeah, again, these are very serious situations. Don't get me wrong. But the one thing is, the thing in France, yeah, that is really serious. I mean, 80 people. I heard it was up to 100, I thought, got killed from an ISIS terrorist believer, whatever you want to call him. And then you have, what do you call it? The thing with Turkey that's taken over. But, it's I guess people that, people need to, I don't know if the word be conform or, like, work with each other, not against each other. And this is the problem that we're going to even have in our country as it's going on. We're having in our country as well. So let me see what I have in my stack of movies. One thing on a lighter note, by the way, I thought this was pretty cool. This Crypt TV link on Facebook said, happy birthday. It's hard to believe, to the Blair Witch Project. The movie that changed horror was celebrating 17 years now. It's 17 years old, that movie. Now, I remember I saw that with my parents over here locally around our house. We saw the Blair Witch Project. And my one friend thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. I just thought it was a horrible movie. And my parents thought it was horrible, too. I didn't see anything impressive about it. Now, these spin-offs that kind of follow the same ingredients, I don't have a problem with. The Blair Witch was horrible. No matter how you look at it, it was just a bad movie. The whole propaganda scheme, I'm trying to look at that perspective. Obviously, it did something right, because 17 years later, there is movies still like The Blair Witch being made. So, hey, they did something right. So, since I'm on entertainment real quick, this was on Cinema Blend, and I've seen it on other articles. The new Darth Vader movie has been announced with an exciting twist. So are they making a Darth Vader movie? I know Darth Vader was going to be introduced or, continued the legacy of Darth Vader in the Rogue One that's coming out at the end of this year. So I don't know what's going on. The Star Wars franchise is arguably the largest and the most successful film series of all time, spanning an entire generation and generating tons of revenue. There are tons of diehard fans who flock to theaters to see their favorite characters in the galaxy far, far away. Well, today is one for the history books of hardcore fans because it appears that Darth Vader is going to be getting his very own story as part of a groundbreaking virtual reality experience that will put you personally in action, in the action of Vader's adventures. It says, and it's coming from reowned genre filmmaker. Only you may have to wait a while to see it, though. So you can go on. There's a little bit more, but I know that they've been talking about that more and more, by the way. They are going to definitely put Darth Vader. Because Rogue One is supposed to take on the timeline of Star Wars. Supposedly, it's supposed to take place, I guess between, I'd assume, the last of the three original, episode 1, 2, and 3. That's where Rogue One's supposed to fit in. But definitely before, 4, 5, and 6 is where Rogue One comes in. Just to give people a heads up if I'm correct. Now, my big thing, by the way, is Harley Quinn right now. I'm like a big Harley Quinn fan just because I think Margaret Robbie just looks really incredible. So there's another one on Comic Book Resources. Harley Quinn's iconic jester suit was actually made for Suicide Squad. Harley Quinn was sported several memorable looks since her 1992 debut. So originally, again, it came from a cartoon, and that was in 92. It crossed animation. I can't say that word right. Right. Comic books and video games, but perhaps none is as iconic as her original Jester's costume, because originally Harley Quinn had a quartz Jester costume. It's taken quite a few twists. I kind of personally like the new one. So there's a story on that for those who are, I never was a big Harley Quinn fan, but when I saw Suicide Squad, I think it's going to explode over the what do you call it? The whole propaganda. No, not propaganda. The whole universe of DC Comics, that Harley Quinn is going to become like the new big super villain type, or vigilante, whatever you want to call her. I think she's going to be more popular, probably, in my opinion, probably more popular than even the Joker. Even though the new Joker looks unique. I wasn't impressed at first. I was not impressed at all at first. But it definitely has grown, more and more on to me. It's like actually captured my attention. Hey, by the way, there's something on Facebook. It's called Disturbing Videos, and these are very disturbing. They have one where this kid is getting his head with one of his lice combs, and they're pulling all the lice out of this kid's hair. And they show the comb afterwards. It says, actually, it's not lice. It is a lice comb, though. But I guess you can use it for fleas. And it says, flea-infested child. And the guy runs this. It's a lice comb, though. I didn't know how those things work. I guess it removes the eggs in the living, what do you call it? The living critters out of the person's hair. And somebody actually did give a good comment. This kid's hair was so infested with these fleas in this kid's head that the comb is just like literally moving on its own. And somebody actually had a really good point. Somebody actually commented, because I posted on my page. I borrowed it from Disturbing Videos, and it's really disgusting looking. They said, why don't you just shave the kid's head? Because he's got so many fleas in his head. I thought it was lice. He's got so many fleas in his head, this kid. Or it's a little girl. I can't tell. It's such a small child. That really they should shave the kid's head. The hair is going to grow back. So, because you're not sure if you're going to get all the fleas out. Especially with that amount of them. So anyway, it would be, to have nowhere to go if you shave the head of the kid. The kid's hair will grow back. I think that would be a smart idea. I agree with that one person who commented on my page about this. There's another one that got posted, and it says, cancer symptoms women often ignore, must read disturbing thing. And it says, these are important but often overlooked signs from bloody disturbing. And it was actually showing that the picture showing like the back of the woman's head. There's like signs, I guess you can get lumps or something that are on, because if you're a woman with long hair, you're just going to kind of ignore it as like scabs, but they're actually signs of cancer. It says chronic cough, chest pains, wheezing, or shortness of breath could be a sign of cancer. Breast changes, obviously. Women always have to look for lumps. Number 3, this is number 3, no joke. Bloating and abdominal pain, swollen lymph nodes, or lymphs on the neck. These are all signs of cancer for women. Skin changes, discoloration of skin, fatigue, mouth changes. I might have to mention this to my mother. Weight loss. That was the last one. I'm sorry, because it just kept on going, but it went to another story. It didn't kind of give me any indication. I just thought it was kind of actually interesting, though. So I'm done with these disturbing stories. And I read about my thing called Tile, which I'm going to get it corrected tomorrow. I talked about the shark thing. Cutting off shark fins is not a cool thing, I'm telling you. It's very disturbing. Oh, I know one thing I was actually going to talk about. I had to post a picture to remind myself. But I'm all caught up on the shows I enjoy watching. And the one I like now, I got my T-shirt on right now. I wore it today. Some guy asked me, what's Scream the TV series? Well, it's like an MTV series that kind of rips off. And I kind of answered myself on how. But I said it kind of rips off Twin Peaks, but in a very good way. Twin Peaks, if you ever watch it, you're familiar with it. There's certain character bases in Twin Peaks. You will see the same character base in a slightly slanted way, or a different direction with the characters, but it's the same premise on Scream the TV series. So that being said, that's why, because I never watched Scream when I was in college, but when I started college back in, I think, 97, that was the big hype. Or actually, I graduated in 97. So maybe it was I thought it was 97. It was 93 maybe then. I think I started college in 93. Either way, yeah, I think I started in 93. The big thing back in 93 then was Twin Peaks. That was everybody knew, talked, lived, breathed Twin Peaks. Let me put it in. So, let's see when it started. It actually started in 91, so that'd be pretty much correct. So I started, Twin Peaks was the big thing. It was only on for 2 seasons. So maybe it was closer to 91 I started. I thought it was 93, but maybe it was actually 91. Either way, it doesn't really matter. But Twin Peaks was the big thing that was the talk of the town. Hey, everybody talking about Twin Peaks. So if you like that premise, Twin Peaks... of Twin Peaks, you would definitely like Scream in many aspects of it, because it kind of follows some of the footsteps of Twin Peaks. Now, why am I mentioning it, and why am I saying it answered myself? Because yesterday, I was at work. I had 8 hours to kill because we are on a shutdown at my job right now. There's maintenance being done on equipment and stuff, so I don't have anything going on. It's hey, this is great. So I'm at work. I watched 2 bad movies. I thought they were bad. One was actually called Dead End, which I got to put in now. The other one I have no freaking clue what it was because it was so bad. Dead End was interesting, though. It had Ray Weiss, Lynn Shay, Alexandria Holden, Mick Cain, and Amber Smith. Dead End actually was a 2003 movie, and it's ironic because Ray Weiss actually was the main character in Twin Peaks. He was the dad who apparently got possessed by a serial killer in Twin Peaks and ends up murdering his daughter. Well, the character of Ray Weiss that was portrayed in Twin Peaks is they got a similar kind of character in Scream. And it didn't dawn on me until now. Though, wait a minute, maybe these people who are writing for the Scream series, TV series, might have been people, because there'd be probably around that generation, who have now left or had grown up, writers and stuff, are probably people that were heavily into Twin Peaks and, David Lynch's genre of film work. So, because you see it a little bit more with the Twin Peaks characters, at least two of them, in Scream. It was like, well, this is actually a really decent show. Yeah, it is a decent show, the Scream the TV series. A lot of people haven't heard about it. I'm trying to get the word out there because I think it's really cool. So anyway, how does this fit in from this movie called Dead End that I thought was horrible? It actually got a decent rating. It got a 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is not bad for this movie called Dead End. So anyway, Ray Weiss was in this movie, and it's definitely, when I was watching this and I got to the very end, it was like they kind of ripped off, in this movie Dead End, it kind of reminded me of a Rod Serling / definitely Twin Peaks or David Lynch feel for a film. It felt like David Lynch met Rod Serling, and they decided to make a film called Dead End. So every, history, they say, does repeat itself, at least in film work, and I think in entertainment, I should say. So obviously, and how does it repeat itself? Well, people get influenced by certain aspects of shows they grew up with, TV shows and movies and stuff, and then they make it into their own version or adaptation, or they make up their own movie or TV show or book or something out of it. So this is what happens here with this Dead End, and it just kind of like, after I watched it, it was like, wait a minute, Ray Weiss is in here. It just kind of reminds me of Twin Peaks. It was like, wait, now I know how it fits into Scream. It's the character or the actor named Ray Weiss. Ray Weiss, who played the father in Twin Peaks. His character is very unique, and it's basically what Twin Peaks was all about, was Ray Weiss. And it was like, oh, okay, now I can see. So again, if you're a person who kind of liked that genre of television back in 91, or even if you missed it, I would say watch Twin Peaks, and then you'll see like a connection. I see there's a lot of connections in Scream the TV series. It really has very little to do with the movies, but they do try to incorporate it when they can. But it's more incorporating people who grew up also with different horror films of all different types. So, because I think the one last weekend was Let the Right One In, which was referring to the film. They've been taking film titles and actually incorporate them into the titles of the Scream episodes, which are really good. But again, if you look at the premise, it is actually kind of, once again, it is incorporating into it, at least with two of the characters, this father and daughter. And if you watch it, you know right what I mean. And I think I won't be the only one, but they incorporate Twin Peaks with the two characters. So that was definitely one of their influences, is what I'm trying to say. I'm doing an awful job doing it, but this is what I was trying to get to, or, allude to, so to speak. I was talking to some girl at work, and my problem is when I talk to people at work, my crazed way of talking convinces people that I am totally mentally unstable. So I was talking to this one girl at work. She's a lab technician. I said, yeah, you know what? I grew up, and I went to college back in the day for liberal arts, basically, which is different than a science degree. She kind of begged the difference. Like, you know what? No offense. There is a difference on the mind frame of a person with a liberal arts degree as opposed to a person who has a science background. One is more, they can't think outside the box. I apologize. And that would be science people. Everything's got to be, etched in reality. Like, they can't think abstractly. I don't think they can. I beg to differ, but I haven't really found any person with a science background besides being eccentric. Most people that are generally into the sciences are maybe slightly eccentric, but not in the same direction as a person who's more inclined or who had gotten a degree in the liberal arts, especially what I want for in communications. So I was kind of mentioning her, like, hey, do you ever read Tennessee Williams? Have you read Shakespeare? Have you read Aldous Huxley? Would that be one? I'm trying to think. Did you read, let me see if I can find the name of the author. Stephen King's stories, his serious stories. Have you read Strindberg? Have you read August Strindberg or Henrik Ibsen? And just not just a small part, but higher, or what do you call it? The Dead. James Joyce. Have you read James Joyce? I mean, this is stuff I read in school. I'm looking for a story called The Awakening, who the author was. I asked her about this. The Yellow Wallpaper. I'm trying to look for these stories. Maybe it was just called Awakening. Short story Awakening by Kate Chopin. Very good story. I guess that's her, Kate. Yeah, short stories. It was called the Awakening, just to let you know. It says short stories, The Awakening by Kate. It looks like Chopin, like the composer. So, excellent story because it was about symbolism. I'm looking for the yellow wallpaper. I'd recommend these stories because I think they're incredible stories, but, by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. That was in 1892, The Yellow Wallpaper. I had to read these little stories. They made it into a movie. The movies are, all of them, every adaptation of these movies are horrendous. But The Yellow Wallpaper is a short story that's incredible. It's incredible about a woman who is crazed and her husband puts her into an institution and just leaves her there, and she's left in a room by herself in this institution where basically all she sees is decorative yellow wallpaper, where she just basically, through her eyes, you yourself become crazed like the woman herself already is. So, but it's just very vividly an incredible book. It's definitely something, short story, I mean, not a book. It's a short story. It's definitely something worth reading. Yeah, I'm looking at, actually it came up on Amazon as a paperback Kindle audiobook for $2.95, Audible. The Awakening, a paperback, November 29th, 2014, but that's not the original release date. So it actually has I had to read that for school because it was 18-something when it originally came out, I thought. Kate Chopin, like the composer again. It's spelled the same way, too, Chopin. Just trying to see when it was originally released. So I thought it's just given the 1899. Maybe that's the date. Anyway, either way, once again, these were stuff I grew up when I was telling her about this. And I kind of left her convinced that this guy is like a total nutball. I'll make sure to keep my distance. It's like, no, it's just, we are on opposite sides of what we find interesting out of our education, whatever. So I told her, and I couldn't remember her name, so I'm looking at this. That's why I'm bringing it up now. Because I think it's really cool. I would actually like to see if they put it on Broadway. They said was Tennessee Williams' The Glass Menagerie, and it says heads back to Broadway with Sally Fields. So later this year, I think, they're going to actually get Sally Fields to play in Tennessee Williams' The Glass Menagerie. Only 4 years after the last arrival of The Glass Menagerie, it will return to Broadway, starring two-time Academy Award winner Sally Fields and Amanda Wingfield. Also starring with Miss Fields will be starring in with Miss Fields in Tennessee Williams' 1944 family drama. Will be the actor-director Joe Mantello as Tom Wingfield. So we had to read Tennessee Williams' Glass Menagerie for college as well. One I like to see going back to like the 1800s, not like the 20th century, because we're in the 21st now, would have to be Henrik Ibsen. Not Henrik Ibsen. He's actually good. The Dollhouse. Very good play. But would be the Ghost Sonata with August Strindberg. That's like an incredible play. Another one they don't play very often, but you will find it in Philadelphia and in New York being played, though, is a Greek play that is very famous for many reasons, and it's Oedipus Rex, which is what I think Sigmund Freud came up with, the Oedipus complex of killing your father and then marrying your mother and procreating with your mother. So that play is that's actually a Greek play, if I remember correctly, of Oedipus Rex, but that is also a very famous play as well that once in a while does come around. The most complicated ones, honestly, to follow, personally, are the ones from Shakespeare. And give or take, once in a while they release a Shakespeare play in film work or in the actual format of a play that comes across that is completely, like, incredible. Like, they simplify it enough. For me, they stupefy it enough that I can actually follow it. The last time that actually did happen, though, unfortunately, this is funny. The last time this has happened, I'm looking something on Facebook that I'm gonna have to post. Was believe it or not, this is no joke. It's with Mel Brooks, Mel Gibson. Sorry about that. Mel Gibson in Hamlet, because they changed the whole thing around quite a bit. Like, for instance, they had taken some of the dialogue that was supposed to be meant for Hamlet's mother, and somehow they gave the dialogue over to to Hamlet to say, which was initially intended for his mother to say. And you're going to say, how can they say that without changing the story? Well, they did that. Because the only reason I know that is because I actually end up doing an essay paper back in college on this, and I basically had to tear the movie and the play apart. Like, I had to read the play, and at the same time, I had to tear the play apart, read the play, but then I had to go through and then look at the movie, and then I try to match up. Excuse me about that. That slipped out. I try to match up what I was looking at in the film with the dialogue on the screen from Mel Gibson, and it was like, wait a minute, the dialogue is all there. It's just been given to a different actor to recite this dialogue, and it was kind of interesting how they did that. And you're probably thinking, well, maybe you just misunderstood it. No, actually, it was painstaking. It definitely had taken hours, but when it was all said and done, that's exactly what they did. I'm not even making it up. And I can't honestly quite remember where. And honestly, on the paper, my professor had, disagreed with a lot of stuff. Like, basically, well, you're not reading this correctly. They didn't change any dialogue. They gave the dialogue just the way it was meant to the person it was meant to go to. Like, it was like, no, I'm telling you. I looked at it. I actually paused it a million times because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was like, wait a minute. The dialogue was kind of changed around slightly. Not changed, but given to a different actor to give the lines to, or where the lines were coming from. So when I saw that, it was like, okay, I'm not seeing this because you have it's again. It was painstaking, but I did it, and I saw that what I saw was correct. So, anyway, folks, I just went off way too far on that one. So, and what am I at? I'm actually at my 1 hour and a half mark. So, as always, I did that again. And I actually put my mic in the wrong spot, so now I just lost that. I don't know if I want to hook it up at this point. I am actually coming to a close for a show anyway. So it's going to get to that point right now it's not working. That since I can't reconnect my mic to stand, I'm going to let it go and tell everybody, hey, if you are listening to me, I appreciate that, and please continue to do so. Feedback is always appreciated. I've never gotten any feedback for the a little over a year I've done these shows. It would be nice to get some, but I never have. But hey, I guess getting listeners is better than anything else. In my future this month, a couple weeks from now, I am going to a Garbage concert, the band Garbage, and I'm going to try to ask at least the lead vocalist if she'd be interested in doing a plug for my show, like I got with John Carpenter, which would be great. And then I'm going to see this girl named Sabrina Carpenter, who plays on Girl Meets World. I'm going to do a meet and greet with her, and maybe I'll ask her, hey, is it possible for you just to give an iWalter plug? Now, the people who listen to me won't know who Sabrina is. Probably they will know who the singer from Garbage is, or the band Garbage. They will at least know who that is, so that's cool. So anyway, thanks for listening, and if you are, I appreciate you tuning in to iWalter. Please do so if you are, and you like what I talk about. Just get other people to kind of tune in as well. And thanks again. This is Walter from iWalter, signing off for now.